the table. Obviously, implementation of this, we're going to go with the 12.5. Obviously, we're going to select the 5.56 chambered ammunition. So you brought up low power variable optics. Now the give and take is some have higher magnification, some have less.
Right.
And now we're coming to a weight issue, mount issue, and some of the things that you discussed, Brandon, about the mounts is that obviously the height, the size, but working around your other accessories and as far as like a offset or a red dot. Yeah.
Pressure pads. Am I running a laser? Am I running a light? And then you also have to think about, in talking about real estate, then you also think about like your front sight post. Where's my front sight post going? So when you get into these sub guns like the 8.3, there really isn't a whole lot of real estate for all of that. The 12.5, what length rail?
11.5 inch, yeah.
11.5 inch. So you got 11.5 inch rail that you can actually work with. I mean, if you go with a 14.5 from some other companies, you're getting about the same rail.
Yeah.
So here you are shortening a little
inch and a
bit.
half, or inch and a half more. Yeah.
So you do have some real estate that you can work with, and I think one of the benefits, of course, as you know, is the whole tri-lock rail system. So if you aren't too spun up on this whole tri-lock rail system, it is a true 7-sided M-lock. So if you want to go ahead and get an inline, scout mount for whatever, light you're using, you can do it on a 45. I mean, it's just kind of a cool rail, and you don't have to worry about, throwing on a top mount QD point for your sling or anything, because of course it's all integrated. So it's a good rail that you're throwing on it.
And then also too shifting with other lasers too. I mean, there's a cross pin that goes in between the upper and lower, which keeps it from anti-rotation. I'll have to mention 2 more set screws, and that wedge lock system is extremely strong.
So it has 4 points of.
You have the wedge lock, you have the 2 set screws, and you have the pin between the upper and the rail. That it's a cross pin. As far as the uppers are where they're cut, there's a whole rail goes. But that's consideration, obviously precision. We don't want any type of laser and stuff like that, because the laser can be used to great distances too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think one of the great things that you're doing as far as the 12.5 goes is it's kind of the stepping stone to maybe someone's first SBR.
Yeah.
Of course, when you start thinking about, I'm going to buy a rifle, is going NFA or non-NFA, it's a huge thing for some people.
It is.
Some people don't want to have to go across state lines with an SBR or anything like that, and they just want to kind of avoid the whole, don't tread on me, and they're getting away from their NFA stuff, So it's kind of also a great rifle, as JT has here. He's got his 12.5 set up, and he got it from you with the SBA3. So
SBA3, yeah.
Works as a good fighting rifle. It's just still, it's a great fighting AR pistol.
Like Brandon was saying, some people are a little bit nervous about the whole NFA deal. So that's why on this build, we went with the pistol brace. I still play around with the idea of SBR in it, but it's just very simple. It's very easy. It's comfortable to shoot. But to me, I've had a lot of people reach out to me and they're like, man, I'm thinking about buying my first TRIARC. I'm thinking about buying my first AR, period. What should I do? And I find myself grabbing this gun more and more and more. And, I've got the 14.5 that I love. The gun shoots awesome. I've shot a bunch of competitions with it. I've shot it a lot out the range with Brandon. But this 12.5 is just becoming my go-to favorite rifle. And so I find myself encouraging people to consider this length because if you get it in the pistol setup or if you go ahead and SBR it, to me it's a perfect, like we're talking about today, it's a perfect in-between kind of all-around do-it-all gun.
Yes.
It's a perfect middle ground to accomplish CQB work or, like we're going to show in this video, if you want to reach out and you want to make it a intermediate distance gun, it's perfectly capable of doing that.
It's like, how far can we get it?
Yeah.
And you're right, and that's the whole thing. And I think going with this application, obviously, Brandon, if you can agree with me, the stock's going to be having it in the rifle configuration, whether someone Form 1s it or buys it as a Form 4 factory SBR. I think going in the rifle route would better suit this application as far as with the distance, because of obviously the cheek weld stability.
I would think so.
Things like that. I mean, an individual can buy this out as a pistol.
Yeah.
But the Form 1, as we know, the Form 1 process right now is just a little bit faster than the Form, or actually a lot more faster than the Form 4. So a lot of individuals will buy the pistol configuration, then go through the process doing the Form 1, and it's a lot faster.
Heck, there was a guy standing out in the shop before we started this video that he said it took 16 days
for his Form 1
to get his e-file Form 1.
And that's one thing we do too, obviously if you're local, is that for all these individuals, if you buy a pistol from us and you end up Form 1-ing it, well, you can bring it back to the shop and we'll laser the variants on it for free. That's just from you buying the pistol from us. We do that as a courtesy.
Yeah, they do. You guys bang it out pretty quick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If they call ahead, if you guys call ahead, set up an appointment, we can have that thing out the same day.
Yeah. So what do we talk about? So we talked about stocks versus.
Yeah. So to talk about stocks, obviously we have a couple here on the table. There's hundreds more, but this is what we come standard. But there's some stocks that Brandon likes to.
I mean, I have my personal. Everyone has their personal preference. Same
Yeah.
with the ammo, glass, red dot, whatever you want to do. Everyone has their personal preference. I'm a big fan of the B5 stocks.
Okay.
I like having my integrated QD in there. I like having kind of that angled, and they do the SOP model one with a little bit bigger. Of a trigger.
It's basically it's just like the old
OLMT
back in the
ones,
day,
yeah.
from the
I've
GWAT.
got one of those. It's like my favorite.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
The only
stock
thing
too.
is no QD in it. I hate that.
Yeah.
Put a little 550 cord through there or something. But you
550
want to talk
cord.
about buffers and springs that you're putting inside the 12.5 specifically, as far as how that affects the operation and the feel of it.
And it's that's all relative to. Obviously, there's multiple things in the sense of like A5 system that work fine with the A5 system.
Right.
Your standard buffer. It's very hard to kind of, our experience with the A5 system. Obviously, there's benefits to. We see a lot of benefit to certain barrel lengths as opposed to others.
Sure.
In the sense of like true, like you'll feel a difference. But
You will feel a difference.
with the 12.5, I mean, honestly, and there's other limitations too. It's just like, okay, pistol configuration. You have to keep that length, an overall length of the pistol, and obviously the 12.5 barrel is longer, so we have to put that mostly too. But on the rifle side, we've had good success with the A5 system, running something similar. Obviously, JP capture springs have good results too.
Mm-hmm.
But all in all, I mean, honestly, they all feel great, and that's something that you could tune. Obviously, even if you're running hotter ammo, you can maybe increase the buffer weight a little bit or something like that. But
And you've done that to my rifles. For anybody who's not familiar with the Voltor A5 system, it increases the feel of the rifle exponentially.
Yeah.
There is an absolute night and day difference between your run of the mill, mil spec buffer and spring.
especially on the short guns too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it changes it completely, because I think I was shooting, my run of the mill rifles, and then we met 6 years ago, and you were like, "Hey, try this," and I remember it had that A5 system,
Yeah.
and I was like, "What is this?" And it is completely different, night and day difference on the feel, function, cycling of the rifle. It changes everything completely.
Well, that's the thing too. Is again going back to follow-up shots or something like that. People think sniper engagements is all belly in the dirt shooting, right?
Yeah.
But like we've talked about before this video, this rifle needs to be capable of making entry into a room, or throwing it up against a wall, barricade shooting from a vehicle, but shooting targets out to those distances that we're curious about. So when you have like that type of buffer system in it, and you have a softer recoil in your gun, when you are braced up on a mount, up on a barricade, you're not having that rise coming up off. You're not having to really muscle and torque down in your gun. You can set the rifle up there, get a good steady brace, and start just ripping rounds. And when you have a rifle that's set up for that purpose with those kinds of components in it, it allows you to be able to do those things that you may not necessarily be confident or competent in accomplishing with a different weapon system.
Well, and that's why I always push people towards either the 13.9 or the 12.5, especially now that 12.5 is becoming like the next hotness. If you go out and you've seen it, you take a brand new shooter and you have them run like a build drill at 7 yards with a 16-inch gun with a nice surefire muzzle device that really controls the gases coming out the end of the business end, their times and their accuracy are going to be super like night and day compared to them shooting like an 8.3 with an A2 flash hider. There's just so many more variables going on and how it controls the business end, which translates to overall accuracy. And if we're talking about a gun that can do everything from CQB work to long range work, a 600, 700 yard gun, you need something that actually cycles and reciprocates well.
Right.
But talking about optics, do we want to get into optics? Because for a do-everything gun, I think the point needs to be made that there are certain limitations with a red dot, as great as a red dot is.
Yeah.
You're not PIDing out to 500 yards.
Nope, not at all.
And you're not hitting it as accurately as you could. So I think that's where LPVOs have been around for decades and decades and decades. But with the advent of the newer ones, some of them are getting up to 1 to 10 now, 1 to 8.
10,
I'm personally in the market for one, and I'm about to go ahead and jump, probably my ATACR. But that 1 to 8's great. And certain things that come into when you're thinking about getting some type of variable glass is, what are the features that I want on it? What kind of reticle do I want? You can get an LPVO that has just a simple crosshair. You can start diving into things that have similar abhors reticles. So for like a do everything gun, I would want some type of LPVO that has a really crisp defined crosshairs that really draws the eye to the center. So if I'm on one buy, I can run a gun. Personally, I'm cross dominant. If you guys have ever shot with me or seen some of the things that I talk about, I'm heavily cross dominant.
Yeah.
My right eye is kind of useless.
Yeah.
So I have always personally struggled with, when I went through sniper school, I always had a little bit of trouble doing any type of shooting on the move, any type of dynamic shooting where where glass was a factor, because eye relief and eye boxes never really worked for me.
Yeah.
Some of these new LPVOs with their 1-bys are phenomenal.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The Voodoo, this Razor 1-6, and now the ATACR that I'm looking at is great. And then when you crank it up to 6 and 8-by, you have a reticle that you can use. You got all your wind holds, you can do ranging, everything.
Yeah, and the illumination on those reticles too on the 1-power, it's just like, man, some of them come close to a red dot. I mean,
Well, and to me, I
super deal.
think that's a necessity for a low power variable optic, is it has to be illuminated. To me,
Yeah, it has to,
personally, because if you don't have an illuminated reticle and you dial it all the way down to 1, and you're trying to find that very, very fine black crosshair with a dark background or something like that,
Contrast out.
one of my deployments, I had that same issue. It was at nighttime, a lot of shadows being casted, and I dialed my optic all the way down, because that's what allows all that light to be gathered into your scope, and I still was having a very hard time picking up the contrast of my crosshairs with the backstop of what I was looking at and what I was trying to pick up intelligence on. So when you turn on that illumination, and now suddenly you have that stark bright red contrast of being able to quickly transition your eye in the scope from gathering intelligence to, oh crap, I really need to get on my optic now and consider what I may have to go to work with. When you can transition to that red, bright illumination, it makes a huge difference. And so I think if you're going to dial it all the way down to 1 power and you're going to use it now as an entry rifle, you need to have that quick, natural kind of red dot type feel to it to be able to pick it up.
And of course, if you're not trying to do that 600-yard gun, there is also, of course, red dots with their 3-bys. And I think some of the new mounts that are coming out for 3-bys, like the flip to center from Unity stuff, is making it such a compact gun. Because you remember, like the 3-bys that we're used to, flopping it over on the side,
and you just and
then you have that one piece
Oh,
of
that's a
brass
game
that
changer.
comes.
Yeah,
This is
that's been a game changer too, and it said it'll give you a red dot, that little bit extension. But for those individuals who obviously they got the LPVO and they choose to put a little bit more money into this project or this build, there's also the option of the offset red dots. So that's another option too. I mean, so if you don't have that capability, obviously the 1-power with the illumination is great, but there's also obviously many routes. There's a whole bunch of routes.
there's a lot of ways to run it.
Yeah, many routes to take on this, because there's a lot of mounts out there, and there's a lot of different red dots. Trijicon's always been as far as the forefront on that, but that's an option too, as far as but one thing about that is that now you have your offset, so now you have to make sure that when you're out running offset, it's not interfering with any type of other accessories you have,
like your light or whatnot.
Yeah,
so what I was doing, the Voodoo with the LaRue mount. One thing I chose. When you start talking about LPVOs, you also have to think about what mount you're going to use. So a lot of them, like some of the the ScholarWorks mount has like super feature rich. I love that it has a little leveling thing in there. I love how it clamps onto the glass. I love how it torques down with its return to 0. I've had nothing but good things to say about all the Scholar stuff. But there are some mounts out there like that you can start running either 45 degrees or even 12 o'clock with your RMR. I found personally that there are some discrepancies between the 45 degrees as well as the top mount. I like the top mount so much more. With the 45 degrees, I always found that when I was transitioning from the LPVO to that 45 degrees, is that it was a little slower having to cant the gun over and find the red dot versus just coming off of the LPVO and then going right up to the red dot. And there is something to be said about the same kind of biomechanic muscle memory. It's the same shooting position as when I'm like shooting under nods with my laser. It's just coming up off, get that good stock in my shoulder, and just come up and then just shoot with my red dot. And I find it on 12 o'clock is a lot easier. I think what Reptilia Corp is making the mounts for the 12 o'clock for the Geisley mounts. I think that's phenomenal, and they even have one for an aim point, so you can do an aim point on top of your LPVO.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of like LPVOs are the ways to go now with so many options in the market.
Yeah, because everybody's kind of finding a solution for that, quick access to the red dot.
There's definitely a learning curve to it, though. I think people can attest to the fact that if you go from a red dot to a low power variable optic, having that almost like oh, this is different realization as you're bringing your rifle up for the first, few months that you go out training with it. You bring that rifle up and you're like, oh man, now I've got this eye relief. And so there's definitely a learning curve to it. But once you pick that up, I think there's so many benefits to running it that once you master it or you get used to it and comfortable with it, it's kind of hard to go back.
It doesn't have to be something that people shy away from, or they're like, I don't know anything about this. I mean, for everything else, there's YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, why go to a class? I can just YouTube this. But there are a lot of instructors out there that are teaching like the ground level basics of long range shooting, where they talk about scope theory. They walk you through some of the basic reticles that are out there.
No. And that's one thing we can't
software over hardware, dude.
Yeah, and that's one thing. Exactly, software, and that's one thing we can't forget. Obviously, before you implement everything, the number one thing that's going to come into play in all this is fundamentals.
Yep.
So we got
the fundamentals don't change. I was
change,
that guy. Like when I first went to sniper school, I was like, I never grew up hunting. I grew up shooting a little bit here and there, but I had never gone into long range theory. And once you get the handle of it, there's no difference from running some type of kill box drill on a flat range to actually getting out, laying down, and getting into the basics of long range shooting. It's actually therapeutic.
I would almost venture to say that in long range shooting, there's less forgiveness when it comes to your fundamentals, because the further you stretch that round out, the smallest things, the moment in your breath, whether it's your natural respiratory pause or you partially exhale or any movement in the gun at all is going to ultimately have a tremendous effect on the accuracy of your round. And so I venture to say, and I don't think it's that far-fetched, but the fundamentals of your shooting are that much more magnified and important when you are doing that long-range precision shooting.
So when we talk about these do-all guns, I think it's kind of fair to say that what we're talking about here is building one of those mini recce's, as people like to call them. It's like the new thing is the mini recce. So I like the idea of having a shorter gun like the 12.5 because it's more maneuverable, it's lighter, and then when you start talking about throwing on a can on the end of it, now you need a lighter package so that I'm always going to be shooting with a can. That's why I keep my can on the 10.5. I like that whole package system. Start talking about an LPVO, and then you go further down, like your LPVO is anywhere between 9 to 10 inches. Some of them are a little bit longer. So now you start talking about real estate hanging over your rail system. So now where am I putting all of my accessories? So that's another thing to think about too, is like where am I going to set up all of my accessories? And one of the good things about 12.5 and your 11-inch rail is that you have enough real estate to put everything you need for a do-all gun. I would feel really confident putting my laser on a 12.5 versus putting a laser on an 8.3.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, I completely agree. And one thing about that too is, same thing with the GD mounts or other mounts out there, you can still keep that laser mount on top because those mounts will raise up a little bit higher to clear it, and some optics will clear it anyways. Regardless, you are going to have a little bit of obstruction in the bottom lower view. But another thing too is a talk point that some people hit on is the grip. Right, so getting into those positions where you're going to take those shots. Also, the whole thing of get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right.
Grip has a lot of play, and that's something that's overlooked a lot. And there's some grips that are smaller, the angle's different, maybe a wider grip. For me, I don't know what it is. The Mo's like a good one size fits all, but a brand I see you have that Reptilia grip on there. There's a reason why, as far as the change your angle. Is it what do you?
The Reptilia grip is actually pretty interesting. When I first got that thing, so I'm a Glock 19 fanboy.
Yeah, okay.
Love the 19. I got slightly bigger hands. I can crush down on a 19 better than I can crush down on a 17. It's not to say I don't shoot a 17 as well as I do a 19. I just personally, the ergonomics of a 19 is great. Yeah. And when Reptilia Core came out with that grip, I was like, man, that's pretty cool because it's the exact same thing as a Glock 19. Throw it on there, the grip angle is much more straightforward. It's like going from a Glock to a Smith & Wesson or a 1911. It's a lot more straightforward. I had that on the 13.9. Yeah. And it was it puts a lot more strain on your wrist because this wrist, your fire and control hand, is now trying to do all the support, all the weight of the rifle on that. So I moved it over to the 10.5 and it's perfect. It's perfect. Now your hands are much more in like a straight inline fighting position. Okay. Find it a lot more comfortable. My trigger pull is a lot more straight because my wrist is a little straighter. Yeah. So for the shorter guns, maybe even these 12.5s, I would like to try it out.
We could do that, yeah.
I think that it would be perfect for some people that may like it. So if you're getting into your shorter guns, that's something that you may want to look at,
Yeah.
especially for compact, because you lose like a half an inch of grip on that.
Yeah.
So for your backpack gun, that might be a very viable
Yeah, it'd be
option.
good. Yeah, because even with that option too, as far as keeping compact, I do want to test out obviously I do want to test out the Law Tactical folder too to keep it in compact. That'll be as far as an option for when we put it in the bag and things like that, because this is a good accessory. All these, I'm sure a lot of people out there, but for you guys that don't, this accessory here, if I can get it to, it's really tight, but it folds basically, and so when you do to employ it, obviously it snaps into place.
I love the Law Tac, but there is one thing that needs to be noted is that you also do have that, because of the apparatus of the Law Tac, is that you also have to factor in that extra 1.5 inches that you're throwing onto the receiver extension.
That's
So
true.
one thing to think about if you want to go for the folder, because it's great in a backpack, but overall, like when I had the Law Tac on mine, I would actually leave it right there, because that was my natural on any other rifle. I always bring my buttstock out in one clip, to the first extension. With that, I would leave the buttstock there because it's in essence the same place as one click. So that's always one thing to think about.
And plus, obviously, that connector is going to increase buffer weight too. So that's one thing we'll take in consideration on that. Now, so we got some grips, trigger. And I'm going to touch the trigger really briefly right now because that's a whole nother thing right now.
Are you going to reset the trigger?
Yeah, you go reset the trigger. But tons of triggers on the market. Drop-ins, everybody knows the big name brands, as far as like JP, Geisley, CMC, things like that. So, we offer that TRIARC enhanced trigger because we're thinking more of a duty gun on this side of it. So we're going to keep that mil-spec trigger, but we're going to implement those enhanced springs. So the JP. Yeah. So basically what it is, and we offer this product, so we have a, good quality mil-spec trigger. And then we introduce a JP tactical spring kit, and that does a lot. Takes a lot of the pounds off, clean break, clean reset. Yeah. And I think we'll just call it a day with that one because, like I said, we can go night and day. But honestly, I mean, it's a good duty trigger in the sense of like it's lightened up and it's not too crazy light, like a 2 pound or anything else like that.
It's not too expensive.
Yeah, it's not too expensive.
It's like $65, right?
Yeah,
something like that.
No, it's not too expensive. And one thing you got to take consideration too, guys, is that some triggers out there, they might have a lot pull, but when you get those higher round counts, you can go back and trigger pull that gauge and see how much it's kind of went down. Yeah, so that's just
springs wear.
Yeah, they wear
over time.
Yeah,
they're going to loosen. That's just the nature of a spring.
Yeah.
But I will say, I mean, when I built this gun out, I was talking about one of those other major manufacturer triggers for my gun, and you're like, hey man, let's try it. Just try it. Just try it. And I went with y'all's enhanced trigger, and I've been very, very pleased and surprised at exactly how good it breaks, how clean it breaks. The restate on it is good. It's absolutely a very feasible. I wouldn't even say it's a feasible budget option. It's just a good feasible trigger.
Which one's in here?
That one is that's center mil-spec. The center mil-spec.
Yeah.
But so obviously touching on the optics, there's many type. We have some on the table. We'll go through and just do a quick little B-roll. But there's different types for different budgets. Some Vortex. We have some Scout Eagles. We have some PST Vipers, which is like a 2 to 10 power. ATAC 1 to 8. We have an old school Leupold 1.1 to 8. Razor 1 to 6 HD. It's a very popular one out in the market. And you get a classic ACOG 1 to 4. So obviously when we go through this, we're gonna settle up on an optic here when we go through that process. But so far everything's looking good. Obviously we'll narrow down on the stock. I do want the folding capability for storage.
Sure.
And some of the accessories, as far as that, we do want it to have a white light. Obviously for navigation, plus whenever you're going to entry into. Also, laser is a must because there's times, like I said, we under nods or just using the IR flood in general is a big help too. Let's see, and that's all the same thing as far as being close in or moving into out where you're moving. Suppressors. So we're not going to dive into this whole thing. I mean, we've talked about suppressors before, and the same thing of the pros and cons, gas blowback. And so since we really want to dial on the gas blowback, because we're talking about follow-up shots at a longer distance, and we don't want the gas blowback, we're going to use, as far as the OSS suppressor. Like I said, there's trade-offs with every suppressors out there, but I think what we're going to end up doing is since I'm really want to mitigate the back pressure as much as they can. They do a great job as far as producing less back pressure. So we'll start with this can off to beat, and then we have the other version. So the question is, do we go short can, or we have shorter, and we have the newer version of their 5.56 tie. So you can see the differences. I know we're trying to keep it compact, so do you still want to keep the short as possible, or we're going to add, as far as the give and take goes, it is a titanium can, so it is lighter.
Yep.
It does have a flashlight end cap, but you see the length, and I think honestly, I think going this route would probably be good as far as keeping the flash down. Also, a little bit more lighter weight. We're going to get a little bit more sound reduction out of the longer can, anyways.
Well, it's going to be one of those 12.5s you set up with the law folder. You're going to be able to fit it in a backpack gun, even if you have the longer can.
Yeah, even the can.
Well, I mean, ultimately, if you look at just the two of them, is it really that much of a trade-off? I mean, you aren't, what is that, half an inch, you know?
Yeah.
Overall length?
Yeah, and we'll get Jimmy to do a little close-up B-roll on that to film in the sense of like, what the difference is. And what you brought up a point, just like you said, the muzzle devices. Maybe you're in a position to where you can't employ the can.
Yeah.
You don't have it stored that way. Okay. Well, you're right. The muzzle devices do a great job as far as the flash hider. Do they have a compensator? And that's something we could try too, to see like, okay, well, if there's a good job for compensation, balancing the both between a brake and a flash hider, we could try that too. So, but this is gonna be exciting. I mean, when we go through part 2, we'll actually set it up, and then we'll talk why we went those parts, and we'll obviously film some of the setups of. That's another thing too. How are we going to set up an LPVO to get ready to go zero at the range?
Sure.
And there's ways as far as mounting the scope.
Right.
It's a thing.
Leveling,
zeroing, bore sighting the scope, installing all parts properly when it comes to accessories, things like that, and also too. I mean, we even have a clip-on that we can show a little bit of that too for night vision.
I'm down with that.
Just
What does it work with?
Huh?
Which ones are working?
The clip-on will work with any of them.
Really?
Between about, obviously from a 4 to 10 power.
What about mount height?
It's, well, I was saying if we use a higher, like say if we use the higher scale one, like the higher mount, then we'd have to probably just get a Picatinny to match that height. That's the thing, that we could just clap a Picatinny on top of the rail and just add it to it and stuff like
There
that.
are so many like rabbit holes we can go in.
Oh yeah.
With setting up this
we could. I mean,
Yeah, I think ultimately that point is that we're talking about the gun that we might think is kind of the best baseline idea on how to set this gun up, right? Because you would set your gun up a little bit different than I might set my gun up.
Yeah.
But this is kind of a general idea as to what we think is the right direction to kind of start going to really ultimately demonstrate the effectiveness of this specific barrel length gas system rifle setup. But to show that it's not as limited as some people may think that it is.
No, it's not. And we're gonna once some scenarios are in place and running as far as how to employ it. That's gonna make us reevaluate the gun all over again to the point where we can say, hey, everything worked good. What can we improve? Or this didn't work out. We'll change that next time down the road. But for the most part, I like this project because we talk about it in the sense of, it's got good velocity. So it should be able to do this. Well, let's really fine tune that. Let's really
mount some things to it and see what it can really do.
Yeah, let's put things on it and see what it does.
Yeah, for sure.
I think what a lot of people will find is that going from your 14.5s or your 16s down to your SBR or even your pistol of the 12.5 is that you're not giving up a whole lot.
Yeah, you're not.
As far as real estate, comfort, ergonomics of the gun, you're not giving up a whole lot because your hand placements are roughly going to be exactly the same. You're just going to have a lot better feel. You're going to be able a little bit more better storage and compact size of the gun, but you're not giving up a whole lot.
Yeah, bipod options. There's many out there. I know that's something we're gonna have to kind of evaluate and do a little bit more research as far as size, things like that. But I think it could be beneficial in that sense. You still have good rail space to do that. So.
Yeah, there's zero doubt that when it comes to long range shooting, the best, most accurate way to shoot is prone with a bipod.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't have that luxury, and that's what Brandon's talking about is like on my sniper rifle, I have a sling with a very lightweight rear bag that I clip into my sling. So as soon as I grab my rifle and I pull my rifle out, that bag is there. And so that's like what he's talking about. There are some awesome companies out there that make some very, very lightweight bags that you can have basically attached to your gun all the time. So when you grab your gun, you deploy out, you unclip it off of your sling, throw it on a belt loop, and then you don't have to have bipod.
Yeah.
You know, and you can throw that bag up front.
And I think sometimes one of the scenarios that we do run, we'll run a scenario where we'll pop the bipod off. We'll run a scenario where we pop other options off, and that'll kind of give everybody out there a good understanding of what might work for you, or what might be better for you as far as when you come to do this own project yourself. I just want to say thank you for everybody. Thank you, Jonathan, Brandon. Appreciate you guys coming into the shop today and doing this video with us. It helps out a lot because I mean you guys got a lot of experience in shooting as far as what you guys do in law enforcement and law enforcement training, things like that. So, but appreciate everybody tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe. If you guys got any ideas or inputs on anything we missed, put them in the comments, and we'll read them and we'll obviously add it to the list. And this, we appreciate all the support from everybody. Honestly, you know, subscribing to this channel, sharing it helps us out a lot. If you have anybody out there that is looking to, you know, go this route, share the video. For those of y'all who have 12.5s out there, and you want to make a change up, well, we'll provide you that list. Honestly, like, and I don't think we need to type it up. We'll just photocopy that chicken scratch, put it up online.
There'll be some doodles on the side.
Yeah, doodles on the side. We're like drawing weird shit.
It's all sustained.
Yeah.
The letters start to trail off where Chris fell asleep while he was writing something.
I'm tired, man. I'm tired, man. You know.
I think what a cool thing is if people are watching this video or on any of the different platforms on social media, if you're setting up a 12.5 and you kind of have your ideas of what components, accessories, and or attachments you're thinking about putting on a short do-all gun, throw it out there. Let's see if it works. See if it's something we would throw in there, or if we wouldn't throw on there. And I guess on the next one we're just gonna slap a rifle together and see how it goes.
Yeah, see how it goes, and we'll see. Like I said, once it's all together, weigh it. Weigh it, move around with a little bit, see what we got. And but good point, man. You got any ideas? Throw them in the comments. If you think if we should put 3 lasers on it and 2 LPBOs on it, just tell us why. I mean, we'll listen.
I mean, the Predator.
A 1 to 6, 1 to 6 at the 12, and a 1 to 4 at the 45.
Yeah. See, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's you're changing the game.
I just want to get PVS 15s and clip them to the top rail.
Hey, but seriously, man, the grip pod.
Hey, to cap it, on the grip pod, unpopular opinion, grip pod is the dad bod of the gun industry. Just saying.